Hi, Veronica Drake and my lovely boy Erik.
Kisses for everyone.
Love you both, and kisses from me for everyone too. And we are going to, as per the agreement with Shinzo Abe, interview him for part two. Part one was wonderful. He's a lovely energy. And yeah, you ready to uh, Prime Minister Abe? Are you ready to rock and roll?
Eric's got his muscles flexing. We're bringing in
Uh,
the guns, he says. We're ready. He's
Ichi Nichi Sanchi Go. That means one, two, three, four, or something, I think.
we're ready. I actually had a little interlude, not salacious, but a little interlude with him before we came on. So we're
Oh,
ready.
okay. All right. First of the community questions of part two. Were you an honest president? Some people think that you covered up the worst nuclear catastrophe in history, which is still ongoing, as the plant is now flooded with nowhere to store radioactive water they pour daily on still hot pours. And that you enacted a secrecy law banning journalists from talking about anything having to do with the plant, cancers, radioactivity, and so forth. Years ago, all this was done. It's a long question to keep Japan's economy afloat. Even his former prime minister spoke out, and his wife led the anti-nuke protest because you were hell bent on restarting nukes in damaged plants. Fish too radioactive to eat in Japan have been shipped to U.S. consumers for the last 10 years. Is this true? Did you lie to the world? I'm sorry to start out that way. That just seems kind of disrespectful, but I have to obey the community.
It's big. The first part of the question he says he'll answer. Were
Okay.
you an honest president?
Yeah.
And he says, and at the end of the day, when everything is all said and done, I did the very best I could. I did what was in my heart.
Mm.
Would everyone be in alignment and agreement with what I did? No, it never works that way. He
No.
said, but I always had purity in my heart.
Okay. All
So,
right.
was I an honest president? He says, I think I was.
Well, did you do any of the things? Maybe you don't want to answer it. Any of the things that this person says that you did?
It's not about getting it exact or did I do precisely those things. I
Mm-hmm.
could have had actions. I did have actions that might have led to some things that people would look at as not positive. So it's a matter of how you view it.
Okay.
I wasn't sinister about anything I did.
Yeah. Did you have a secrecy law banning journalists from talking about anything related to the nuclear plant?
No,
Okay, good.
no. I'm all about
Uh,
anti-communism. Why would I do that?
yeah. All right. Yeah. So were radioactive fish shipped to U.S. consumers?
Not to my knowledge. No,
Okay. Okay.
no.
Next question. Hopefully it's easier. Some people say you worshipped war criminals. This must be the same person, including your grandfather, who was one, and made a pilgrimage to Yasukuni Shrine every year to do so. Placed Yakuza, which is an organized crime unit with roots in Japan, in position of power and in charge of decommissioning work at the nuclear plant. Okay. So, did you worship war criminals, including your grandfather, when you went to the Yasukuni Shrine every year?
He's laughing, like chuckling, not disrespectfully
Oh, yeah.
laughing, but he's just it's absurd, he says. It's
Okay.
absurd.
Okay.
And where does one get proof for this and how is this
Right.
brought into a
Yeah.
reality where it's just not in my DNA?
Yeah. Was your grandfather a war criminal?
No, he very adamantly answers no.
Okay.
No, no,
Um,
no. My grandfather stood for had very high morals and was a great role model for me.
okay. Now, did you put Yakuza members, the organized crime members, at least knowingly in position of power?
No, No. And
Okay.
he gets a little irritated with this
I'm
because,
getting irritated too. I know.
yeah, because
Sorry.
he says people are looking and want salaciousness around
I
everything.
know people want negative. They want
Yeah.
negative. They want to take people down. I know,
And
but
he
you know
just said
the
there
uh,
wasn't. Now, I'm giving you from my heart, he says, my truth. I did not know if in
okay,
fact that was true that they were. I did not know it.
okay.
I would never knowingly jeopardize people.
Well, these are very difficult questions, but on the other hand, it gives you a chance to
Mhm.
give us your truth, to give the world your truth.
He's owning the fact that he was different.
Okay.
I was different. I marched to a different drum, he says, a different beat. I started out in this world, and I'm honest to own this, a little bit with a he's trying to get the phrase for a silver spoon in his mouth. He
Okay.
had a more of a fluent beginning than a lot of people. And he's saying that people have always had it out for him. And he's not saying that as a victim
Yeah.
mentality at
This is a
all.
state of fact.
Yeah, it's a state of fact. And prior to him, also his grandfather, it goes back.
Okay. Did you protect cabinet members from rape charges as you left office with a 34% approval rating? Did you protect cabinet members from rape charges?
I I did not. I could have
Okay.
done better.
All right. Is
I
the
could
seafood
I
off
could
the
have wait, he's clarifying that. He says I could have done better, meaning I should have had eyes all the way around.
Yeah,
I wasn't seeing the full picture.
easier said than done. All right, well, let's
Mhm.
go back to how you say you were different, that you marched to a beat of a different drum. How so? In what way were you different?
I always had ideals that were of a almost like a community, like a benevolence, a gathering of one soul. I always was somebody that played to the underdog and supported the underdog, even though, and he's very humble to say this, I didn't, I couldn't personally relate to that, but still my heart was there. There was something in my soul that came into this life to be that spark to people who didn't have that.
Okay. Okay. Awesome answer. Next, is the seafood off the coast of Japan truly safe to eat after the Fukushima plant disaster? I
Oh,
mean, from your perspective now in spirit, do you
yeah.
think it's safe?
Um, he says I would eat it.
Ugh, I don't like seafood that much.
No,
I'm a
I
steak and potato guy, girl.
he said that it like everything else has gotten blown out of proportion. Was there a problem? Yeah, was, obviously, but they've taken great strides, great measures, brought in some brilliant minds to help clear that up. And
Okay. What truly, oh, this is a good question. What truly kept you up at night?
the first thing that came up was he said, wondering if I served my family, my community, my country honorably.
Okay.
Did I do the right thing? He says. And this was, he says it's all relative because with the bigness of all of the stuff weighing on me, every night, every week it would be a different thing.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say, but when it all boils down, oh, this is nice. Was I the best person I could have been?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's sweet. All right. This one is yeah. Could you have done more for the people in Japan? Let me rewrite that and say, what do you think you could have done differently in behalf of the Japanese people, if anything? Maybe it's nothing.
I feel like I could have spoken out more to the women in the community.
Oh,
I never felt that they were marginal or that they were less than. That wasn't who I was, and sometimes it was portrayed. So for that demographic, I feel like I could have been more supportive.
Interesting. Okay. All right. This is a two-part question. As a politician, what do you think were the issues facing Japan?
Right away, he says corruption.
Oh, where?
Corruption. He said it permeates everywhere. It was just so insidious. He says when I came in, it was like, put the gloves on, put your boots on, get ready. Whose hand washes whose hand, who's in bed with who, all of that.
Oh, yeah, we have it here.
Yeah, he says, and I tried to. It's funny because Eric's going in my ear, drain the swamp, drain the swamp.
Oh, God, yeah.
But he's showing me like this. He's like fanning out, getting rid of. And he said it was a cultural thing that he had to um, deal with. This is where he's saying he wasn't the norm culturally of
Oh,
what the beliefs were.
mm,
He was more power to the people, all about empowerment, where it seemed when he came in, people had expectations of being taken care of in not a way that you would think, like
yeah.
entitlement. He said, think entitlement. And he's talking about the people that surrounded him
Mm,
in maybe the administration or
yeah.
former. Yeah. He
What was
said
it?
it was covert, though. He said it wasn't anything that was out and spoken about.
Uh, what is there a deep state in Japan, just like there is here?
Of course.
Where was most of the corruption? In the Treasury, defense, cabinet, anything in
Goes
particular?
like this. He draws a line, and he goes, and the line goes right through everything. He said, just like you have it,
Yeah.
right through everything. He
Okay.
said, are some areas more highly concentrated than others? Absolutely. He goes like this: money, the
Oh,
treasury is one.
mm.
He also says that he felt on some level, he's doing this, like he was puppeteered,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
or somebody really was after him to puppeteer him,
Okay.
which ultimately, in the end, showed you that he couldn't be puppeteered
Yeah,
or
exactly.
wouldn't be. Yeah.
Now that you are gone, what kind of country do you want Japan to be?
Proud, honest,
Okay.
respectful,
Good.
producing people that are proud to be from Japan, producing people that add to the love of the world, producing people, products and awareness that say we are a contender for this new dimension that's coming in. We're good
Hmm.
people.
Oh, that's nice. So are you MJGA? Make Japan great again?
Eric's cracking up. I would say so. Yeah, you know,
Okay.
I would
What did
say
you
so.
what did you think about Trump and what do you think about Biden?
He says, I give my respects to both. I know firsthand it's not an easy job. I know that you walk around with a constant bullseye on your back.
Yeah.
I know that at the end of the day, both are human, both, and including myself, are flawed.
Yeah. Aren't we all?
And add the fact that each of them have two very distinct personalities and ways of approaching things. But honestly, he believes that they each have, this is going to sound funny, he says, but they each have the greater good of the country in their hearts. They don't always have the finesse or the power or the articulation to put that forward.
Yeah.
Um, and he says that he doesn't want to sling mud because that's not what you do.
No, I don't want you to either, of course.
Mhm. But he says what's good about this, Trump, Biden, whoever, you have the ability to rotate it,
Yeah,
to change it.
that's
And
true.
a community, a country, a people need time to acclimate to the person that's in leadership to understand if they align with their values and look beyond this slanderous media that's become
Oh, yeah.
the lifeblood. And he's really adamant about looking at the people and not the media's perception of the people.
Yeah. Did you encounter fake news, incorrect media stories, things like that?
Oh, of course, he says we didn't have the term fake news, of course,
Yeah.
but there were slanders all the time, not only about me, but about my wife, uh,
Oh,
my friends. He said it's sad, but it's part of the role.
yeah.
Comes with
Contrast. You have to have
Yep,
contrast.
yep, comes with the role.
Yeah. People have to learn to think for themselves too. All right. What does the future of your country look like? Japan has been economically stuck for decades. Didn't know that.
The eternal optimist in me wants to say that this new revelation, this new regime, this new mindset that is governing the collective will take hold and we'll see a shift, a roundabout. But he says, unfortunately, the reality is, unless policies are created and certain people hear those policies, adhere to those policies around finance, um, nothing will change. He doesn't necessarily feel that the right leadership to do that is in place at the moment.
Okay. Okay. Uh, what's the cause of the recent increase in murder cases in Japan, you think?
Well, we can look at it this way. He says, if if financial reasons are a cause for angst and mental illness,
Mm,
depression,
yeah.
anxiety, and you grasp to survive because the basic human mind is all about survival and you don't have, you'll take. And sometimes in the take process, this occurs. There's also a lot of um, um, manipulation happening to the people.
In what way? Through the media or?
People's minds are being poisoned. Forget about the fish. It's the people's minds that are being poisoned.
How so? By whom?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Hmm, that was creepy.
Yeah. He uses the phrase, you know the phrase, Jim Jones, drink the Kool-Aid.
Oh, okay, okay.
People are believing the propaganda. They're believing, oh, I think he's pointing to the regime that's in there,
Oh,
the
okay.
current not all of them, he says, not all of them. I think that's a digression, though. With all due respect, I'm not sure how we stayed on point with that being the murder or
Well,
the
mental
amount.
illness that people are being.
Yeah, but oh, he says simple, boil it down, fear,
Okay.
fear. People are running in fear, and also there's your country. He says talks about you call it the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
Right? He says there is an even bigger discrepancy where we are.
Oh, yeah.
Huge poverty population
Okay.
that doesn't have, and this creates depression, mental
Mm.
illness, which creates
Anger.
anger, which creates seeking out medication for anger. And if it's not legit, it goes undercover. He said it's the same story everywhere. But also, he says to me to tell you, there's a lot of corruption in the departments that police the country.
Oh, yeah. We have the
It's
same problem here too.
it's rampant. He says.
Oh gosh. So,
If you pay me, he says the mindset of that is awful. He says if you pay me, I'll look the other way.
oh gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. What do you think about the current prime minister of Japan?
He's got a big smile on his face and he goes like this. He's got a big plate. He's got a big
Okay.
plate.
Mm,
Um, I do think if there's anybody that can figure it out, if he surrounds himself with the right people and he keeps the right attitude, that is this. Not any one person is responsible or accountable, or it's a team effort, he says,
right.
and can't be a lone soldier.
Okay. Well, maybe you can guide him from the other side.
He says right now he's just trying to review and get his own life in order, and he's sure that he will be back to the people
Okay.
he loves.
Okay. This is kind of the same. I think we've already answered, but I'll say it anyway. What would you have done differently in your life if you could live it again?
I say I had a good life. I say I
Okay.
had a good life. I probably would say I could have been, and he's very methodical with his words, and he does a lot of pausing. I could have been a better husband.
Okay. Well, it's probably hard when you're a politician, you're so busy. So was that the problem or?
And she was so into her own life. We were a good fit, but I
Yeah.
feel like I could have given her more.
Oh, okay. Um, do you have
He
any
has a great,
regrets
let me just say, he
beside
has
that?
a
Right.
great love, a great admiration, and a great respect for his wife.
Oh,
He's very vocal about that.
oh, that's wonderful. Any other regrets while you were prime minister?
Uh, I could have done more for the human trafficking.
Oh, okay. All right.
That 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 sickens me.
Yeah, it does me too.
Sickens me. I could have made it a bigger issue, made a bigger deal of the issue that it was. That's one of the things I always thought I'd have time to do.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Hindsight's 2020 sometimes.
Yeah.
What kind of effect does your killing have for the assassin's goal or goals? I don't I don't
Uh,
know. I don't understand that. He's probably in prison, right? Do you
can you
understand
say
that?
that again? Can you read that again?
Yeah. What kind of effect does your killing have for the assassin's goals?
So he's asking this. Are you talking about my particular assassin, or if someone were to assassin in general? Because there should be no leniency, and he may have the punishment that could deter others from doing it.
Okay.
He's hopeful.
Oh,
Make my death mean something for others.
yeah. Okay. What was your transition like? Were you surprised? Anything shock you? I mean, can you kind of describe the whole transition process that you had?
He says, and he's sitting back and he's in his chair and he's like this and looking, and he says, rather uneventful.
Okay.
And so to elaborate on that, he says, it really isn't that big a deal.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm still there.
Wow.
I feel like I just walked in another room. I feel like it was this beautiful hallway that I just walked down, opened the door, and went into the next room.
Wow. So what was your environment like? Was it a white room? Was it
Um,
a
he
landscape?
he says the hall was, because he's adamant about this hall. He
Oh,
says, call it a tunnel. I call it a hall. I walked down the hall. There were lots of doors. It was very, he's saying soft lighting,
mm,
very inviting. He said it had a coolness to it.
mm.
And he also says this, it had a familiarity to it.
Oh,
Like I
interesting.
knew I had been there before.
Oh,
And that familiarity put me at ease immediately. Immediately. And he's
I
showing me
see.
this. He was, at the time of death, he was picked up, like his body was
Oh,
picked up,
yeah.
and he was carried to the entrance of this hallway.
Oh,
And at the entrance of the hallway, all was healed.
oh,
So he was able to walk down the hallway. Archangel Michael was the one that picked him up.
oh, that's wonderful. Did you have your life review already?
It's processing.
Oh,
One thing I want to clarify, he says,
mm-hmm.
it's not one event that we have a life review. There are
Oh,
multiple steps to it.
oh,
And he says, think of it like this. Once you begin the life review, you look at it and then you go back to the Akashic records and you have to match experiences. And he said it's a lot more work than people realize.
ugh, that's what I want to die and have more work. I'm kidding.
But he uses the word work, he says, in a human sense that we would understand the word work
Right.
because it's really ethereal. He says it's really a blessing to be
Mm,
able to do this because once you it's funny because Erik's doing this. Erik's going like, match all the colors. This is the blue circle, put the blue circle on it. He's saying once you match all the experiences up, then you can see exactly where you need to go to plan the next
oh,
life.
oh, interesting. Um, can you describe your surroundings right now? I mean, basically, where do you have a home that you created, or is there a certain landscape or anything?
I can see nothing but water.
Okay.
I love looking at the water.
Mm,
I am in a very simple, small dwelling.
mm,
Um, it's nothing magnanimous. It has no resemblance to anything I lived on Earth. It's as simple as can be. And
oh,
he's with his
nice.
grandfather.
Oh, good. Okay. Who met you first? Your grandfather, beside Archangel Michael, of course.
He says it was kind of like a homecoming. There was like multiple family members. There was somebody there. So the grandfather, I believe the other male there was either a sibling or an uncle.
Okay.
They were DNA connected.
Okay.
There was also a grandmother.
Mhm.
I believe she's on the mother's side.
Okay.
Um, and he says that he lost a childhood friend that was also there to
Mhm.
greet him.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Do you have well, actually, what were you here to learn, and what were you here to teach? We'll do that first. Almost finished.
Compassion is certainly one of the things. Um, and I was here to learn that Ah, I was here to learn what I just said about the current regime. You can't do it all as one
Oh,
person.
okay.
Can't.
Well,
And you have to delegate.
okay. What was your spiritual mission? And I guess that means what were you here to teach, for
To heal
one?
the world, to heal the world. I mean, to elevate the consciousness. At the end of the day, he says that's why humans are here.
Well, that's true.
Mhm.
That's very good. Is there any other life that you'd like to share that most influenced your? I mean, there's probably several, but can you describe one life that that influenced your life as Prime Minister Abe?
He's saying he spent a lot of time at sea during this life that he's showing me,
Okay.
and that he had sea legs because he really had no place on Earth on land that he lived.
Hmm.
So he learned how to be self-sustaining with very, very little, and
Hmm.
therefore, when he came into this life, he had to experience the opposite of having a lot like he had. So the
Oh,
balance there, not getting staying humble with what he had because he's remembering his roots. And it's interesting, the sea life, because the image he shows is he's wandering out in the middle of nowhere and it's desolate and there's nothing to see. And everything that they got in the sea was what sustained them. And he did
oh,
that for a living,
interesting.
commercial
Okay.
fisherman.
Wow. Is there any maybe a fun fact that very few people know about you? Or maybe nobody knows about you?
He's laughing. He says, "Oh, I don't know that anyone, would want to know about me. I liked silk pajamas."
Oh, okay.
And he's blushing. He's looking like,
Oh, all right. Last but not least, do you have any messages for the Japanese or anybody for that matter?
it really is true that what you put out, you get back. And even though people may see you differently than you know in your heart that you are, never give up being who you are and putting out from your heart, because it always pays off.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes it's difficult to do, but it's definitely
Oh, absolutely. But therein lies the lessons and therein lies the humanity.
that's right. Anything else you'd like to share?
No, he says, just be kind to each other.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Prime Minister Abe. And thank you, Veronica. VeronicaDrake.com. I love you. And I love you, Erik. Thank you for bringing him forward. And yeah, hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you won't miss another one of these.
All right.
Bye. Thank you, Veronica.